Hello, I am Phong. Today, I will take you to a place that almost anyone visiting Hanoi will stop by at least once. I started my journey from my office to Hoan Kiem Lake, which took about 20 minutes. I looked for a parking space. The parking fee here is about 20 cents per entry. This is a city-run parking lot, so the cost is cheaper than parking outside. After getting my parking ticket, I started walking toward Hoan Kiem Lake. This is Hoan Kiem Lake or Sword Lake, the heart of Vietnam's capital. If New York has Central Park and London has Hyde Park, to Hanoians, Hoan Kiem Lake is like the shared living room of the entire city. People come here to walk, exercise, go on dates, drink coffee, or simply sit and gaze at the water. I'm taking a stroll around the lake. Today is a weekday, so there are fewer people walking around compared to the weekend. Why is it called Hoan Kiem Lake? The most interesting thing about Hoan Kiem Lake isn't its scenery, but the story attached to it. According to Vietnamese legend, in the 15th century, the country was being invaded by the Ming army from China. A hero named Le Loi received a magical sword granted by the Dragon King. The Vietnamese believe this very sword helped him defeat the invaders and regain the country's independence. After the war ended, while King Le Loi was boating on this lake, a giant golden turtle suddenly surfaced from the water. The turtle approached the boat and took back the magical sword to return it to the Dragon King. Since then, the lake has been named Hoan Kiem Lake, meaning the lake of the returned sword. You might think this is just a legend, but it is as important to the Vietnamese as the story of King Arthur is to the British. Turtle Tower. Right in the middle of the lake is a small tower called the Turtle Tower. The special thing about it is that no one lives there, and tourists are not allowed to step foot on it. It was built in the late 19th century and gradually became the most famous symbol of Hanoi. If you look at Vietnamese currency, postcards, or promotional photos of Hanoi, it's highly likely you'll see an image of the Turtle Tower. Are the giant turtles real? What makes the story even more fascinating is that Hoan Kiem Lake actually used to house giant soft-shell turtles. A few individuals weighed nearly 200 kilograms. Hanoians consider them the sacred mascots of the lake. The last famous turtle passed away in 2016 and is currently preserved in the Vietnam National Museum of Nature. To this day, many people still believe that somewhere down at the bottom of the lake, another one exists. Goch Son Temple. If you look across to the other side, you will see a very striking red bridge. That is the Te Hook Bridge. Its name means the place that catches the morning sunlight. This bridge leads to Ngoc Son Temple, one of the most famous temples in Hanoi. Locals come here to pray for good luck, academic success, smooth careers, and health. If you visit during the Lunar New Year, this place will be packed with people. What tourists love about Hoan Kiem Lake. If this is your first time in Hanoi, I highly recommend visiting Hoan Kiem Lake twice. Early morning. The air is very cool and quiet, and you will get to see the daily life of the locals. Weekend evening. The entire area turns into an outdoor festival with thousands of people, yet it remains very safe and friendly. You barely need to buy a ticket to enjoy this place. Just grab a cup of Vietnamese coffee for about $1 to $2, sit by the lake, watch the crowds go by, and you'll have a very memorable afternoon. Hoan Kiem Lake may not be the most beautiful lake in the world. It doesn't have massive architectural structures or thrilling amusement rides. But if you want to understand what Hanoi is truly like, this is where you should start. Because Hoan Kiem Lake is not just a tourist attraction. It is a place that preserves the history, legends, and daily rhythms of millions of capital residents. Coming here, you won't just see the sights, you'll feel the spirit of Hanoi. Dong Kin Nghia Tuk Square. Right in front of us is Dong Kin Nghia Tuk Square, one of the most bustling places in Hanoi. If Hoan Kiem Lake is considered the heart of the capital, then this square is the intersection of all its lifelines. Every day, tens of thousands of locals, tourists, street performers, and vendors gather here. This is also where many people begin their journey to explore the Hanoi Old Quarter. The meaning of the name. If they just hear the name Dong Kin Nghia Thuk, many foreigners probably won't understand what it means. Dong Kin is the old name for Hanoi from over 100 years ago. Nghia Thuk is the name of a very famous educational movement founded in 1907. What's remarkable is that this school only operated for about 9 months, yet it had a massive impact on Vietnamese history. This movement contributed to awakening patriotism and the desire for national reform during the time Vietnam was still under French colonial rule. To commemorate that spirit, this square was named Dong Kin Nghia Thuk Square, a special location. Take a look around. This is practically the crossroad of all the most famous landmarks in Hanoi. Right in front is Hoan Kiem Lake. To the left is the Old Quarter, featuring dozens of streets with hundreds of years of history. With just a few minutes' walk, you'll reach the night market, famous coffee shops, souvenir stores, and plenty of street food. Therefore, almost anyone visiting Hanoi will pass through this square at least once. The daytime rhythm. During the day, this place is always packed. You will see groups of tourists gathering to listen to guides introduce the history of Hanoi. Electric cars continuously shuttle visitors around Hoan Kiem Lake and the Old Quarter. Portrait artists, balloon sellers, souvenir vendors, and rooftop cafes are always bustling with customers. If you want to observe the rhythm of Hanoi from a single vantage point, this is probably the most ideal spot. The evening atmosphere. But the square only truly comes alive in the evening, especially on weekends. When the Hoan Kiem Lake area turns into a walking street, the square transforms into a giant outdoor stage. You will come across acoustic bands performing for free, modern dance crews, artists playing the violin or saxophone, kids playing traditional folk games, and adults sitting around drinking lemon tea, chatting, and enjoying the cool breeze. The fascinating part is that most of these activities are completely free. That is why both locals and tourists love coming here. If you've ever been to famous squares like Times Square in New York or Piazza San Marco in Venice, Dong Kin Nghia Thuk Square will give you a completely different vibe. It's not too flashy. There are no giant LED screens. Instead, there's laughter, street music, the smell of coffee, street vendors, and thousands of locals enjoying the evening with their families and friends. It is exactly this intimacy that creates the unique charm of this place. Dong Kin Nghia Thuk Square is not just a traffic intersection or a place to take photos. It is where Hanoi's history, culture, and modern life converge. If you want to experience this city with all your senses, listening to street music, watching the crowds, enjoying a coffee, and immersing yourself in the local atmosphere, then this is definitely one of the spots you shouldn't miss. Ta Hien Street at night. If there is one street known as the place that never sleeps in Hanoi, it is Ta Hien Street. It's evening now, and I'll take everyone to the busiest street in Hanoi. This street operates all night, mainly catering to tourists. There are also many great eateries, entertainment services, loud music, and the roar of the crowds. This is the street scene I'm walking into on a weekday. If I came on a weekend, I probably wouldn't even be able to squeeze through because of the sheer volume of people flocking here. Locals often call this place by a very interesting name, Beer Street. Not because it has fancy bars or expensive nightclubs, but because almost every spot serves Bia Hoi Hanoi, a famous draft beer produced and distributed daily. The great thing is that the beer here is incredibly cheap. For just about $1 to $2, you can order a few glasses and sit for hours with your friends. That's why this place constantly attracts Hanoians, backpackers, and expats living in Vietnam. If you look closely, you'll notice almost everyone is sitting on very low plastic stools. This is a highly characteristic feature of Vietnamese culture. No fancy furniture or elaborate setups. People just need a small stool, some light snacks, a cold glass of beer, and good conversation with friends to have a fun evening. What I love most about Ta Hien isn't the beer, but the atmosphere. You can hear the clinking of glasses ringing out from all sides, music blasting from the bars, the laughter and chatter of tourists from all over the world, and even the calls of street vendors passing by. Everything blends together to create a space that is very chaotic, but also quintessentially Hanoi. Walking down the street, you'll see people of all nationalities. There are European tourists just wrapping up their day tours. There are groups of friends from Korea, Japan, or Australia trying bia hoi for the first time. There are Vietnamese locals getting off work, stopping by for some grilled skewers before heading home. All sitting shoulder to shoulder on tiny stools, even if they've never met before. Besides beer, Ta Hien is also famous for its street food. You can find fried fermented pork rolls, nem chua ran, grilled chicken wings, meat skewers, grilled chicken feet, seafood, barbecue, and many other Vietnamese dishes. Most are quite reasonably priced, making this an excellent spot if you want to experience local cuisine without spending too much. Another interesting fact is that many of the buildings here have stood for hundreds of years. During the day, Ta Hien looks like a peaceful ancient street. But when night falls, the whole street transforms into an outdoor festival. The lights from the bars, the music, and the massive crowds make this place completely different from the daytime. If you are someone who prefers quiet, Ta Hien might be a bit too loud for you. But if you want to feel the nighttime energy of Hanoi, meet people from all over the globe, and experience Vietnam's famous draft beer culture, then this is definitely a place you should visit at least once. Ta Hien is not just a street for drinking beer. It is a place where you can feel the youthful, open, and vibrant rhythm of Hanoi after the sun goes down. Final tips and outro: snacks and water. For buying snacks or water, you can pop into convenience stores like Circle K or GS25. They have everything you might need with clearly printed prices, making things much more reasonable than buying from street vendors. Cyclo ride. You can also experience riding a cyclo, a three-wheeled bicycle, around the old quarter. For a cost of about $4 to $8 per ride, you'll get to slowly take in the ancient streets and gradually feel the peacefulness of Hanoi. After exploring the old quarter, I looked at my watch and realized it was quite late, so I got my bike and headed home. I am riding along the road next to West Lake. The air is cool and pleasant. I'm watching the cafes that are still quite crowded with young people sitting there. Now, I'm going to rest up to prepare for tomorrow's work. See you in my next video. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel to get notified for the next episode.